Kiran Banjan, who is actually the Director and Vice Chancellor of PMI Mauritius. He has more than 12 years of experience in the education sector, and today he will be leading the panel discussion on New World, New Ways of Managing Risk. Welcome, Professor Kiran.
Good morning, Ansar.
Morning.
And thank you for this nice introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning on this special day, on this first day of Project PMI Mauritius conference. And I've been asked to take a look at what can happen in this new world. And the topic that we have today is new world, new ways of managing risks. And to talk with us today, to give us their views as professionals, as practitioners, we have Jean-David Bagnat, who is a site project manager at Emineo Limited. We have with us also this morning Dr. Jalel Poulet, who is the head of NetSuite practice at Catalyst Business Solution. And finally, last but definitely not least, we have with us Wajiha Hossenbokus, who is a business system analyst at Ceridian Mauritius. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Are you there?
Good morning. How are you?
Welcome, welcome. And I've been asked to not ask the difficult questions, but we cannot do that in the world where we are. So how I'm going to proceed is we'll be having a discussion, the three of you with me as moderator, on a few topics so that we can overall see what is this new perspective and what is this new way of managing risks. You know, as backdrop to this discussion, a recent article in Forbes magazine indicated that many companies are exploring how work will look in the post-pandemic environment, because the COVID-19 outbreak caught the world by surprise. And unfortunately, many companies were largely unprepared, with about 71% global risk executives saying that COVID-19 exposed deficiencies in their crisis management plans. So questions to the panel. I'll start with you, Jean-David, since you're here. Question one, with this kind of situation as backdrop, how, if at all, has the new world order affected your industry?
Yes. First of all, thank you for inviting me to discuss on this panel. And I'm from the construction industry. So basically the construction industry has been, I can say, the most hit industries because of the pandemic, because we rely on physical contact, we rely on physical aspect of works. The pandemic, of course, we could not predict the disruption in supply chain because of the pandemic. So our plan did fail because of this. We could not predict an important increase in terms of claim for extension of time because of the disruption in supply chain. We could not also predict the increase in terms of force majeure, because now we've seen many contractors invoking the force majeure aspect of contracts, because here again, this could not be predicted before. So I can say, to answer your question, I can say yes, our contingency plan did fail, and I think many industries crisis management plan did fail as well.
Okay, and Jalil, what do you think about this? Has there been any changes in your industry?
From my side, it is a bit different because we are in the technology industry. So I will split my answers in two sides, because in technology we have the delivery side where we implement the solution, and also we have the sales side. In terms of delivery side, what we have observed is because we are based, all of our solutions are based in the cloud. So we managed to keep the delivery ongoing during the pandemic, during the lockdown. It was almost smooth, and people had got the opportunity to work from home. Customers on their side got the opportunity to work the home and connect with the system. But on the other side, in terms of sales, definitely we were massively hit, because we have seen that many companies that were intending to invest in terms of technology, and they were just rethinking about the decision due to uncertainty. So the effect is still here. So sales has been very, very slow. We are now just seeing some positive sign coming up, but on the sales side, we can say we were massively hit.
And Wajida, do you have a different perspective, since you are also from this IT field?
Yeah, I do actually. Yeah, it did have a huge shift in the way we used to do things. Previously, we did have a lot of the human interactions, be it between our staffs and all. But now with this, like I said, this backdrop, we've totally, I would say, yeah, almost totally switched to something more virtual, and be dealing with our clients, being in a human capital management industry, actually, mostly. This has really had an impact, be it with our staffs and or our partners or our clients, where in the past we could potentially be thinking of meeting them, but now this has become something to avoid, of course, for the safety of both sides. And talking about the crisis management plans, yeah, if somebody is sick for COVID and all, or even for the vaccination, you wouldn't be having yesteryears something like this in your plans, to have somebody go on vacation for a COVID sickness that could go on for months. You know, and yeah, that's mostly around it. And there's also been a shift in the way we're doing things, mostly working from home, and this has had a lot of impact, I should say.
All right. So what we have today, ladies and gentlemen, as you've realized, we have a perspective from the hardcore engineering, if I can call it like that, with Jean-David giving us what is happening on site. And then we have the perspective of Jalil and Wajida, more on the IT perspective, not really getting your hands dirty as Jean-David is doing. But we realize whether it is the hardcore industry or the IT industry, there has been some kind of major changes in terms of what I heard Jean-David said, extension of time, claims for force majeure, which was never there before, or disruptions in the sales, not really in programming, because we do tend to agree that programming can really happen anywhere. But yes, disruption in sales, disruptions in business, disruption in interaction, especially when we had to have this kind of human touch to the business side of things. Now, and this is the theme of our conference today, COVID has created this VUCA world. But of course, VUCA is not a new world. It's not a new word at all. HBR, Harvard Business Review, had an article published as early as January 2014, which talked about VUCA and about how to go about doing this. But now COVID has really brought VUCA to our doorstep, a world which is volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. And it is making us now live what was previously unknown in our traditional planning, namely a disaster of global proportions. Now, this VUCA, like I said, made us know a few previous unknowns. What about the unknown unknowns? Or if I can put it, in a less tongue-twisting words, what are the main risks that have resulted from the new normal way of managing projects in this VUCA environment? Maybe I can start with you, Wajida, then we move backwards now.
Sure, ladies first. unknown unknowns, like I said, could be risks. And as we've probably learned in our any certification, that risk can be either positive or negative. And on the positive side is we've discovered many opportunities for people to actually work from their homes and learn to balance their professional and personal lives. These are in terms of opportunities, but like many of the speakers have often mentioned is that, and especially our attendees have mentioned, is that we are often faced with endless working hours that just don't seem to end. We have a start time, but end times are sometimes very unpredicted. And this has definitely had an impact on moral health of employees, and hence performance in some cases. But then another opportunity which has definitely arisen is that there are more management opportunities for the employees to get new ways of working and balancing their work life. And optimally is that, you know, this balance and this new skill of learning how to put a hard line of when to start and stop is something we have actually been spoon-fed since the office life, you know. And that's me.
All right.
My thoughts about that.
And Jalil, do you agree with what she's just said? Because I could see you at some point moving your head and saying yes and supporting no.
Yeah. I can agree in some point where she's mentioning about people overworking and also people getting disconnected and not meeting their colleagues, and their way of working has changed drastically. But me, from my side, what I have seen it as a positive thing is many companies that were not trusting their employees, that were feeling that projects might fail if it being managed virtually, especially in Africa and Middle East, where people normally prefer face-to-face compared to North American customers that we had. This culture have changed. I can just relate a small story. Last year, I reached back to Mauritius just 2 days before the lockdown in Mauritius. We got some news and we were expecting a lockdown, and I reached Mauritius and I had to left a site in Nigeria, a big site of 1.2 million customers, and even the CEO, the managing director, were very, very anxious about the situation, and they were feeling that the project will fail because we are just leaving the site, a team of consultants is leaving the site, and we won't be able to do to continue the implementation virtually. But we proved that it could be possible. We managed the implementations, we did the training, we did the change management, and we have showed them that it is possible even to manage the risk, because we have tried to anticipate things in advance, that we ensured that connection were good, we ensured that everyone should have access to the internet on customer side. So it has definitely given us an experience that even big projects can be tackled in virtual mode. So, but on the other side, all my team members were saying that when they got back home, instead of training face-to-face, they were like spending more time doing, like hand-holding virtually, because when you are just beside the person, it is much easier. So as we have like pros and cons, but what we learn really is many things that we were not thinking that were doable before. We have proved it that it can be done through the efficient use of technology.
All right, thank you for that. Jean-David, do you have another view on that?
Yes, sure, for sure. The construction industry is quite different. So I may say that the deployment of new technologies in itself is a disruption. So it is an unknown. We don't know where technologies will bring us with the 5G, with the new technologies. Now we see speed of 1 gigs per second. So we don't know where this is going to bring us. We see a major unknown for the construction industries, because now we see new evolution of technologies. In terms of new risks, we've seen also now we have to adopt a new way of working as well. So in our industry now is more on a hybrid way of working, so remote work and so like this. So now, because of remote work, now we have new risks. We've seen an increased risk in terms of miscommunication, because working from home or working remotely cannot see the non-verbal clues, the body language. We cannot see this in the video. We cannot have these feelings. See? So this is difficult to determine working from home. We've seen mental health. Some of them mentioned mental health. Definitely, it has an impact of it. It is an unknown also in itself, because what is going to be the impact of the new way of working in 10 years? We don't know. And we see an increased risk of burn down. People saying we are working more hours now, and this definitely has an impact which we cannot predict now. We don't know. And another thing we've seen, what I've noticed is that now PM, project management, tend to micromanage their team. And this is a risk, because when you micromanage your team, then you impact on the mental health. So I think all these unknown and new risk is going to, we need to assess and see the impact for the years to come.
We get the idea that the new normal has created quite a lot of disruptions. I was a little bit surprised when I heard Wajida said it created a better life-work balance. I was like, oh, really? I felt like I was working 22 hours per day. But then you've all given me, you've all given me all the new risks that are there. And we agree there are many, many risks associated with this VUCA world. But as project manager, how are you undertaking risk management? How are you, tackling those risks? Because you just mentioned quite a few of them. How are you tackling this? Can I start with Jalil, and then I move on to Jean-David?
Very interesting question. So definitely, in order to tackle this risk, I think the very first thing that we are doing is identify risk. For example, I have heard that Wajiha has mentioned that at times people might be staying at home. They have just left a project due to COVID, and they won't be available for the coming days. So it might happen on customer side, even on the implementation side. So what we used to do, and also what we are still doing, is identifying all these risks and then working on contingencies. For example, we are asking for customers to have backup plans, to have backup staff in case some people would not be available at any point in time due to COVID and due to lockdown at a point in time. And so I would say from my side, the most important thing is we should be able to assess this risk, to identify this risk, and then develop a mitigation plan so that we can react fast when this situation is affecting us.
Thank you, Jalil. Jean-David, what do you think? Do you agree with him, or do you have other ideas? Jean-David, are you there? I think we have a little glitch in connection. Let me go to Wajida. What do you think?
Just
Wajida?
like we've just seen, there's a heavy reliance on internet connection, right? Yeah. And that is another risk that we probably would have had less emphasis on in the past. In coming to risks of burn down, I think it comes down to the manager as well to make sure that they're following up with the people for self-assessments, regular check-ins, and that appropriate trainings are given for leveraging personal skills. Because it's undeniable that nowadays, because of this pandemic situations, relationships between management and employees are relying heavily on trust in goodwill of employees, and that the new unknown unknowns that now need to be identified are far way more different than what we used to do in the past. So that's just a live example right now, as is internet.
Right, thank you. David, are you around? Jean-David, are you there? 1, 2, 3 times. Jean-David is not there. Jean-David, are you there? I can see you on my screen, but I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Yes, hello?
Yes, we can hear you now. Welcome back.
Yeah, I have a major disruption in the technologies.
Jean-David, how are you, actually, in effect, managing risk associated with this VUCA world?
Yes. Now with the new VUCA world, I may say that as a project manager, and we need to have a new mindset now. It's definitely, we need to have a new mindset, because now we need to put people first, definitely, you see, because people now, we need to bring the willingness of people to engage in genuine cooperation and collaboration, because otherwise it's not going to work. So we have to, because people require freedom for them to be able to be creative, for them to be able to be flexible. So, and then we need to develop, I may say, we need to develop a culture that connects people back to the organization. This is the kind of new mindset that is required in the new VUCA world.
Okay. Okay. So in a nutshell, if I can sum what all three of you have said, it's that despite being in lockdown, despite working from home, we should still be in a situation where we care for our team members, where we ensure that there is mental well-being, where they are, well cared for, and at the same time, make sure that we take into account this element of connectivity and how badly we now depend on it. Which brings me to my next question, and it comes right on time. With this new world or new world order has created innovations that were not there before. Even this platform, we would never have used Zoom to have a meeting before, and innovation that are more linked with technology enhanced tools. And some people are now arguing that this scientification of risks has made it easier for project managers to identify, to define, to control risks. And at the same time, they're saying, since we are using technology enhanced tools, let's go one step further and let's use stuffs like AI, which will now replace this project manager in risk planning and risk decision making process. What do you think about that? Jali, let me ask you this question first. What do you think about it?
So again, another very interesting question regarding AI, which normally from my business. So we are offering these kinds of AI technologies to help business to improve their decision making. But with regard to project management, what I would say, AI won't be able to replace the human touch. I give you a simple example. If someone has like a personal problem, someone is feeling, emotional in a team, the virtual project manager won't be able to take a decision based on information, but on emotion, but mostly based on facts and figures. But what I can say from here, and based also on the tools that I myself is offering to customers, is we have lots of analytics, lots of predictive analytics dashboard based on AI. And this AI definitely can help project managers to give them heads up on what is coming. For example, if you're seeing a trend that a resource is not performing well virtually, so you need to take maybe some action, some remedies. So these, I would say, just to sum up, is AI can supplement the project manager with additional tool, but for in order to replace the role of a PM at this point in time, I don't see it coming even in the next decade.
Okay, Vajida, how do you feel about this?
Mixed feelings.
I'm asking you the difficult questions, but then they are paying me to ask the difficult questions today.
Well, let's tackle it. Scientification. I would relate it closely to technology and the fact that data and analytics can become easier to gauge productivity. With this shift in the way we're working, I would say definition of risk can still represent a problem due to the VUCA aspect of the current world's situation in this pandemic. And then controlling the risks, I would say, comes down to new agile ways of dealing with the known risks and mitigating unknowns. But again, that would come down to our shoulders, being project manager, project managers in whatever project it is, and also because sentiment analysis is not yet an optimized technology available. We have only seen starting points. For example, the Tesla and the new humanoid robot thing. I think we will become a bit more dependent on the machine if we are heading towards a virtual working world, unless something changes. We don't know. But as of now, AI, for how far we know of, does not have enough behavioral analysis or sentiment analysis capabilities. So do I think it can replace the human thinking and decision-making process? As of now, no, but it could still be a possibility.
All right. Thank you for that. Jean-David, what do you think?
Yes, I was listening. Great remark from both speakers. So, makes me remind of one thing. According to a review from our business review, now with the VUCA world, we need to adopt a best thinking strategy instead of best thinking practices, because we used to look up the practices and adopt the practices. With AI, definitely we can use the best practices for benchmarking. For instance, AI allows us to automate risk management model or risk monitoring model. AI can allow us to view what the peer industries are doing. However, AI does not have the human touch. You see, so AI cannot replace people, definitely, because now the requirement now we need to be agile, definitely. We need to be alert, and we need to communicate effectively. And can AI do all these things right now? I don't think so. Not now. Maybe in 1 or 2 years.
All right.
But we still have to wait for this.
So if I can understand what all of you are saying is that yes to AI, yes to technology-enhanced tools, but as a tool, not as a replacement for men or women, or not as a replacement for decision-making, not as a replacement for emotional intelligence in the way that we manage projects. I have a very interesting question that came to us from the audience. So I will stop my grilling of you and I'll ask the audience to do that. I have a question from the audience, and that question is, we are now into the 2nd year of the pandemic. So with that kind of knowledge, is the pandemic a force majeure anymore? A force majeure is something that is, happens and we never planned and we didn't know happened. But now it is there for 2 years.
Yeah.
I would say,
yeah.
What do you think?
Yes, you know the definition of force majeure. It is defined as being an act of God. You see, so now we've seen the COVID-19 being mutated, so it is permanently mutating. So yes, it does apply, because we don't know how the vaccine is going to react to the next mutation of the COVID. So yes, it does apply still. We're still in the force majeure.
Okay.
To some extent, I don't agree, because in the United States, we have often heard about mitigations that have been considered for cases like a global pandemic. So to say that this is a force majeure, I would say to some extent, unless you're seeing mass death, well, which we don't hope, but then the world has had an opportunity to take responsibility of things like this.
Okay. All right. Jalil, do you want to add to this discussion?
From my side, I would just relate a very small story. When at a point in time we had a colleague from Canada who have in Mauritius, and he was much scared of the cyclone class 3 warning when all of the Mauritian were just enjoying their stay at home because they were ready for the cyclone. And then when we got back to Canada with him, we were scared about the snow. And he told me, why are you scared about, the very cold temperature here? It is just like, Mauritians are used to cyclone class 3 and class 4 in Mauritius. No one is scared, even if the road are blocked and you can't go to work. So it's just a question of adaptation. So what we can see here right now, what is really happening, and I can see this pattern also in terms of business managers, business decision makers, is now they're seeing the pattern. As we know, we will get food because the supply chain is not disrupted. Agriculture is ongoing, manufacturing is ongoing, and business person are still, they can now focus for the coming years what will happen even if the pandemic keep on affecting us. and they are trying to invest accordingly in the business to keep, the business up and running. Because at a point in time, when we were really in the nowhere, we never knew what would be happening on the next day. If we will have a lockdown, if the business would be closed for months, for weeks. Now we can see that even schools are operating globally.
Okay.
What I can
I get your idea on that.
If I may add, I do not agree with the two speakers, because my question is to be able to focus and adapt to the unknown, if we may say, we need to get clear communication. But my question, I may hold to the audience and the speakers: are we getting the right communication? Are we getting the right communication and the real communication? This will be the main factor.
There's a legal aspect to it. I will just throw this thing out for us to discuss at a later point of time when we meet in one of the PMI event. There is a legal aspect to it. The legal aspect to it is, like you mentioned, the definition of force majeure is an act of God. Now, while being politically correct, there is this tendency to believe that COVID was created somewhere in a country, in some lab. So with that kind of backdrop, is it an act of God? I'm not asking for an answer to this, just for us to move over this and we can discuss at some point of time. But I would like to take a question. I think it might be the last question given the time frame that we have. I'd like to take a question from the audience, and it is about the transfer of risks. We all know that risk assessment comprises the 5 elements of avoid, share, reduce, accept, and transfer. And transfer being where we go to insurance and say insure, or where consultants or clients transfer their risk on the contractors. So would you recommend passing the risk to contractors or to suppliers? And if yes, why and how? Jean-David, let me ask this question first.
My opinion, if I mentioned before, it's we need to build trust with the customer and with all the stakeholders, and this relates to this trust, because to whom am I going to transfer the risk? So here again, it's related to the trust we have with the customer. So we can agree to cut the peer in two halves, if I may say. So generally, it's the way forward. But here again, it depends on the trust that a contractor has with the client and all stakeholders in general.
Wajida? I can see the body language. Wajida is not happy with what Jean-David is saying. What do you feel about it?
To some extent, I agree and I don't, of course, it's debatable, but just transferring a risk is not what I would tag as being responsible, because it is the duty of any person in a management position to make sure that appropriate analysis of a situation is done so that you can identify your risks and opportunities, of course. So I personally believe that if there is that much of risk that arises that you cannot afford to handle it yourself to some extent, and just considering too many options of transferring it, that would mean some additional work needs to be considered to make sure that transfers of risk are limited. Because for instance, an insurance company, yes, you can ask for an insurance concerning certain risks, for instance, cyclones, like we say, force majeures. But for instance, connectivity for your internet, there is always a risk that you get disconnected at any point in time. But then I would say it becomes of your responsibility to make sure you have one provider, but also maybe a backup provider. Why not a dongle just standing, available somewhere, somehow? So I believe that transferring a risk, yes, but to some extent, it should be limited.
All right. Jalil, what do you think of that?
From my side, I won't use the word transfer, but maybe shares a risk. This is actually what we're doing. For example, if a key decision maker is not available due to COVID or any valuable key resource in a project, So we would be impacted, and at a point in time, our team on our team side also it can be impacted. On the customer side also, we can face this kind of situation. Instead of asking just the customer, to pay for the extra cost because our team was on bench because they were not able to work as the customer was not unavailable. So we are not doing this kind of thing. So we are saying, okay, we understand that there is a force majeure, and we will share the cost. So I think this aspect of sharing and collaborating is helping us to move in this kind of situation. But I have also seen in terms of insurance companies, because it is a business of just taking the risk from you. I have seen interesting things like, for example, income protection plan that I have not seen before. I think these kind of insurance companies are trying to make use of this pandemic as a business opportunity to sell new products and services. And if this shoots a certain person, why not transfer this risk?
All right, thank you so much. I think we have slightly exceeded time. I'm not being a very good project manager today. We are 4 minutes beyond time. Thank you so much for your contribution. I think all of you gave very insightful answers that should not stay there, should be the starting point for the community to ponder upon, or maybe have further sessions to discuss. Thank you, Wajida. Thank you, Jalil. Thank you, Jean-David. It was a pleasure having you on this panel.
Thank you.
Ansar,
Thanks.
I'm giving the floor back to you. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Professor Karan, for this leading this session.